What makes an IGL good? What makes pro players make the dumbest mistakes sometimes? And what can poker and game theory teach us about how professional esports players make decisions in-game? Hello, I am Irish, otherwise known as A Thin Irish Dude. I'm a Tier 2 caster for Rainbow Six Siege, and today I want to teach you guys a little of what I learned with my economics degree and how it can relate to professional esports and even in your ranked games. Now first off, what is game theory? Game theory is a logic and math-based framework for decision-making inside of games, particularly those with imperfect information, or games unlike chess where not all players know everything that's going on inside of the game state. The best example of this is poker, namely because a good chunk of game theory is built around maximizing profits with minimal information provided at the poker table. Without knowing exactly what cards your opponent has, you can use game theory to make an optimal decision, given the bet, based on what you do know. The strength of your cards or hand, the size of your pot or the money you stand to gain, and the size of the bet or how much money you have to risk in order to make it to showdown. Poker provides the perfect backdrop for what I want to explain today: leveling and conditioning. What is leveling, you might ask? Well, the term comes from cognitive hierarchy theory. It's derived from the term level K. It's basically, you know that Key and Peele sketch, Mexican Standoff, where they're going back and forth and they're like, oh, I knew that you knew that I knew. Well, that's a silly but pretty apt example of leveling. If you're thinking on level 0, I'm thinking on level 1. If you have no strategy at all, I'm thinking with the most base level of strategy to counter that. And if I know that you're using the most base level of strategy, then I'm going to level 2, something that perfectly counters level 1. And then you just keep going, that's level K. You just insert any number of variable that's just one slightly above. Now I want to bring up a poker example to explain this. For some context in this game, it's a part of an early 2010 show called The Big Game. Each 5 episodes features a new loose cannon who is given $100,000 to play with for those 5 episodes. And at the end, he keeps all the winnings above the 100,000, gives back the 100,000, or if he's below the initial staked amount, he doesn't lose anything. Usually, this is a disadvantage because it makes people play super conservatively at the beginning, and at the end, they tend to gamble more because they have nothing to lose. This tends to make players super predictable, as they only play really good hands, don't tend to bet a lot, fold too much, and then get super aggressive near the end of the 5 episodes, or if they're so low where there's essentially no risk and so much to gain. Such was not the case for Gonzalez Cannon, the first loose cannon of Season 2, who used the seat to his advantage. Instead of starting off scared, he came out swinging, and because nobody at the table had played against him before, as well as the fact that the usual calling station was next to the 2 most wild players, the table respected his bets. This meant that he was winning a significant amount to other people folding, because they thought he would be too scared as the loose cannon to bluff. Before people realized that he had bluffed quite a few times and adjust their game to his style of play, he had already gone up tens of thousands of dollars and had rarely been called down all the way. This is where Scott Seaver decides to mix it up a little bit. Scott has a pair and an ace, which is a moderately good hand. Gonzo has a good draw, or a hand that could turn into something really good, but it's speculative. So, Gonzo puts a bet to push people out, and hope to get something down the road. He has an okay chance of getting something really good, so it's called a semi-bluff, but the worst happens. Nothing matures, and he tries to win the hand on reputation alone. Seaver stands up to him, calls him down, and wins the pot.
Cannon's only shot is to bet at this, but nothing really hit the river that should change things all that much for Seaver. And he fires a third barrel, 8,000 into Seaver. This bet's for less than half the pot. Scott may think if he truly had a jack, he'd probably try to bet more. Plus, Scott's made way thinner calls than this one. If he does call, it could potentially be very damaging to the Cannon's table image. He does.
Good call.
And the Cannon shows him the attempted bluff. And Scott Seaver, the professional, finally stands up to Cannon, the amateur.
Good call.
Thank you.
And this could have caused a much less confident player to bluff less, play more passive, and really back down from confrontation, now that people are finally willing to call his bets. This is when Cannon makes a great decision. The old, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Cannon finds himself in the exact same scenario. He's up against the same player, with the same draw and against the exact same bluff-catching hand. Seaver once again has a middle pair, and Gonzalez once again has a straight draw. He goes for an over half pot size bet on the turn, the second to last card, and goes for another less than half size bet on the river. Seaver thinks that this couldn't possibly be the exact same play that failed so spectacularly on the last time, so Seaver finds a fold. This is the exact same thing that I was mentioning before. Cannon knows that Seaver is capable of making a hero call against his bluff because he'd done it before. So, Gonzo goes one level deeper and goes for the exact same bluff. He baits Seaver into thinking that it's a bait, so Seaver tucks tail and runs away. Basically, Gonzo tells a believable story based on what he has shown before and what he knows Seaver knows. And he goes one step above to perform a calculated risk, and it pays off beautifully. Talking about calculated risk, this brings up another key example of leveling that was shown at the 6 Invitational in Boston. In one of the most talked about moments afterwards, FaZe Handy pulls off the most insane instance of leveling that I've ever seen in esports, poker, or honestly anything. This is obviously the blitz prediction play in blue. At such low time, Handy makes the decision to hold for a swing, and Usus runs directly into the waiting arms of Handy. Why did Usus do this? He's a professional player. Doesn't he know that he needs to wait till 0-0? Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Alright, so Handy picks up Diffuser right here with 4.5-4-ish seconds. We're going to wait until 24. He's going to plant close. And he's going to finish 15. Alright, so now we're going to play it out from Usus' perspective. So he, in this scenario, is actually going to wait till 0-0. So we're going to start at 40, and then he's going to run 0-0, 36. So he does get there in time, with 1 second to spare to stop this close plant. The problem is, for Handy right here, he actually has time to get behind this box, to get behind triple as well, to get behind AKs. He has lots of options about where he's going to plant. So yes, Usus does have 1 second where he can swing around, stop plant, but there's a lot of risk to that. Giving himself just that few extra seconds, just that 1.5 seconds that he actually ends up giving himself, allows him to, if Handy isn't here, then be able to get to here with enough time. Handy will be getting off plant, will be able to shoot his feet. Anywhere he'll actually be able to clear. So is it a mistake from Usus? I mean, yeah, kind of. But also, it's a completely understandable mistake. So, yes, technically, the correct decision is to wait for 0-0, and that definitely would have won Usus the round. But it's not that bad of a decision once you really break it down. There is a higher risk to not giving himself that time, given that Handy could have planted in multiple spaces in back armory. So, he makes a decision to take the calculated risk, knowing all of those possible options, as well as the fact that Handy could have picked up the diffuser earlier, and really could have had that extra 2 seconds in his pocket to get that plant down. Usus just doesn't have enough information, and Handy makes a really, really good leveling decision based off of that, knowing the win conditions that Usus has to play. It might seem like a foolish play from Usus to swing out a little bit earlier. It might seem like a foolish play of Handy to hold for it, but Handy knows what Usus is thinking and just thinks one level deeper. But that play is as iconic as it is because that moment almost never happens in games. Moments like that where someone has a perfect read of exactly what's going on are so few and far between. What's far more common is an intentional technique of leveling that an in-game leader sets up for his team, something that we call conditioning. Now, for an example of this, let's look at Wolves versus Fnatic.
Demo's power has unfortunately gone out. So, Fresh, you are new demo?
No. Not that Wolves versus Fnatic. This Wolves versus Fnatic. At Masters Toronto in 2025 in Valorant, Wolves, a Chinese team, made a surprise run through the playoff stage of the tournament. They were inexperienced, but they were playing incredibly disciplined and were overperforming against teams that were expected to be far better than them. Fnatic, on the other hand, was comprised of 4/5 former Masters winners and a core three that had been playing together for years under a system that Boaster, their IGL or in-game leader, had tested throughout the years and had been incredibly successful with. They met in the lower bracket finals, Wolves off a loss to the eventual Masters winners in Paper Rex, and Fnatic with wind in their sails after making a massive lower bracket run and taking down the expected champions of G2 just in the previous game. Fnatic start out the series on split, and the rounds 1, 2, and 4 start the exact same. They take A ramp control, push quickly through Heaven off that control. Wolves take a timeout and try to shore out some of these issues of leaving A ramps slightly too unguarded. And the adaptation is clear. After the timeout, they have 2 players take towards ramp, and a third holding mid, but close enough for a rotate. Fnatic take B, win the round, but this sets the stage for later rounds, because Boaster is starting to cook. He's reading these new players over towards A, and they continue B on round 6. But round 8 is the round that I really want to highlight here, because this is what starts to set the condition for later on in the game. It starts off with a hold. Fnatic are just waiting out for 10 seconds in case Wolves push on the flank, like they have on previous rounds. Now, they don't end up doing that, and Fnatic then group around A main, where they know that Wolves are holding. They get the info that Juicy is holding there with a Fade Dog, and then they stack multiple layers of utility to get an incredibly clean kill. They place a tether, they stun him with an Astrostar, and they flash him with Yoru. This is an incredibly unwinnable spot for Juicy, and it's based on him getting a little bit too comfortable in A ramps. And it ends up turning into a pretty chaotic, util-heavy round on B site, but Boaster has already set the condition. If someone is playing in A ramps, we will punish you, take space Heaven, and then probably end up B. Wolves end up taking a timeout here. And after the timeout, a gorgeous play is called by Fnatic. Fnatic push Juicy out from ramp, cut noise, Kayak fakes on B, and then Fnatic group for a hit on A, and Wolves completely take the bait.
It's so hard to have faith in what you're seeing. This is a double fake. And it's beautiful. Look what it's done. Yeah. You're watching a master at work, Mike.
The site is entirely unguarded because seemingly this is the exact same hit they just saw before the timeout. Just like Gonzo, just like Handy, Fnatic are that one level deeper. They've sold a believable story based on previous rounds, and they are in the perfect position to win this round. Funny enough, they end up losing the round, but that's not the purpose of this segment. The purpose of this segment is to show what I wanted to show, that players are setting these conditions and pulling off plays because they're trying to convince their opponents to behave predictably. And this play only works if Wolves are at a high level already, which is why the timing is perfect for right after the timeout. Fnatic need to rely on the fact that Wolves have picked apart their play previously, that they completely understand the play of initial pressure towards A, and then an eventual finish towards B. It's unfortunate that Wolves fall for the bait because of that exact reason, and Fnatic end up pulling off a perfect double fake. But unlike the Handy clip, this play was almost entirely in the control of Fnatic. They pressured A ramps early in the game, they punished Juicy and went for a B finish, they had control the entire time. It's not that Boaster made a guess on how the rotations were going to work, he conditioned them to think a specific way because of what they had done previously. He gave them all the tools to come to a decision and then punished them for putting the puzzle pieces together. When we say he's calling a masterclass, this is exactly what we mean. Leveling in poker, level K decision-making in game theory, and conditioning in esports. It's all based off of the same concepts that's baked into underlying theory that's present in all competitive games. No matter what you know it by, it's the thing that drives strategy, makes good IGLs great, and makes one-of-a-kind plays truly iconic. Big thank you to Duck Duck, who helped me so much during this video. The clip that we ended up recording actually didn't end up going in the video because I re-recorded it, but just a special shout out to him, and thank you guys so very much for watching.